All right, hello folks, and welcome to a new stream that is going to look at the latest reimagined Sharandar campaign that the Neverwinter MMO game has thrown at us. It's kind of hard to understand why they've relaunched this, but relaunched it they have. What was their first expansion of the Neverwinter game, going into the elven lands and the Feywild. And there's some neat lore behind that. I've covered this before when I did a walkthrough of Sharandar itself, the old version, which now does not exist and has been replaced. It's all shiny and new, but it's a good opportunity to revisit it, and we can kind of together see what the new module throws at us and talk about the lore as we go, as we uncover what's in this game. As always, I try to look at this from the perspective of a dungeon master that's running D&D games and thinking through what will it feel like to have this world come to life on a tabletop game. Like if I were turning this into a D&D campaign, what would I do with this? What can I borrow from this game to have either really neat visuals or cool quests and ideas? I'm always looking that with an interest towards using the game to further my role-playing game. So let's start with where we're based. We're in the city of Neverwinter. You can see Neverwinter there on the coastline. And there is that huge wood called Neverwinter Wood. That's probably where we're going to be heading because that is the location of the elven lands. And it's worth saying that lore-wise, Neverwinter Wood is a deep, thick forest. It is a hazardous place to be. It's ancient, it's wild, it's deadly. And it's ancient, in fact, because it is the remnants of what used to be a much larger wood that covered this whole area. There was a great empire of Illifarn, which was a Fey empire that was here, covering much of northwest Faerun, including Neverwinter Wood. And long ago, in terms of the timeline of where we are, we're in the Forgotten Realms, which is where this is set. It's the year 1492 or thereabouts, depending on what adventure you're playing these days, but somewhere around 1492-ish of Dale Reckoning. That's the calendar that's used. And negative 1,100 DR. So, 2,500 years ago is when the remnants of the elven empire of Illifarn fragment, and many of the elves go to Evermeet, which is sort of like Lord of the Rings going off to a far land. Others go to Ardeep. Some go to Rilithar, which is located in Westwood and Cryptgarden Forest to the south of this. Others to what is called Ilian Bruin, and that is in Neverwinter Wood. That's their land that they set up there. Ilian Bruin's capital is Sharandar, built high in the trees. And if we go to the Neverwinter book, which is an awesome campaign setting, one of the best ever made across any edition by some really cool authors, we find there a chapter or a section that tells us all about Sharandar and gives us art like this that you can see is inspired by Tolkien and all kinds of cool myths that we have around fey creatures, right? Big, huge trees, and it's glowing, and they have homes that are on top of them, and it's just unimaginably beautiful. But as you can see from this image, this has fallen into some disrepair, and there's a reason because the capital of Sharandar, it's eventually abandoned as well in something like 342 DR, so that's like 1,100 years ago. Some elves leave to actually go to the Feywild version of Sharandar. The actual Sharandar in our world, in the Forgotten Realms, becomes overgrown ruins. And when the spell plague strikes, which is a magical cataclysm that occurred not too long ago, about 100 years before the present time, this magical calamity brings the Feywild into closer alignment with the mortal realm. So the creatures can now move back and forth through these weakened barriers. This allows people, the elves who remain in this area, to travel to the Feywild. It also allows Fey creatures to move back and forth. And some Eladrin decide to, and the Eladrin are sort of the elves that go to the Feywild. though there are various definitions depending on the edition of the game. But these elves that are from the Feywild decide to move back from the Feywild kingdom at Vilanbruen to the Sharandar, to the Neverwinter Wood, and they form the new Sharandar in the Neverwinter Wood, named after the old capital of Sharandar. The Eladrin restore the ruins, begin to do this, and somewhere around there is when we get into our Neverwinter story. Now, in the original story, which Neverwinter is not getting rid of, they're just adding to it, and sort of you can't get to the old story anymore. Look, so you could, as a new player, run through that whole thing as if it were happening right then and there. Here in this case, the game is telling us that we're adding to the lore. So in what happened previously is that elves such as Marisara Winterwhite hired adventurers to help because a Fomorian king was raising an army. His name is Malabog. And Malabog had the Orb of Dragonkind, a very powerful artifact, used it to control Fulminorax, a blue dragon. And this brought him into alignment with an old foe of the city of Neverwinter called Valindra. And Valindra, who we've talked about in some previous videos, her lore, sort of gives a lot of resources to help the evil Fae and King Malabog of the Fomorian army gain power and strike back at the elves, but that's where we come in as heroes. Also worth mentioning that we have a tower that was sort of the center of this area of play, where we had the greatest elven knight, the moon elf Celadine. He had held back the gloaming court of Malabog for centuries after other elves had left. He kind of stood his ground there and would have kept it, but he was corrupted by Fomorian witches who convinced him he had been abandoned by his kin, and they tainted him. And one of the things you do that's at the center of the campaign is to defeat him. Kind of three big things you do is defeat Celadine, defeat Malabog, and defeat Fulminorax, the blue dragon, which all those three things together allow you to take over Neverwinter. So let's jump into the game and let's see what this all looks like. So we are in the city of Neverwinter. Neverwinter, we are near the palace area, so we have the Lord Neverember is back in there, and we can go say hi to him very briefly. He's sitting upon his throne. We have all access pass. So that is Lord Neverember in there, and one of his advisors. So similarly to how it was done, in similar fashion to how it was done before, we can go through the city of Neverwinter to an area where the elves have come and visited, and it's located in the same place as it was before. We can come down here, and this place, this exact spot has been redesigned. It looks a little different. There's some prettier, fire going on here. You can hear the fire crackling. Looks like there are some art here. That looks like for the Fomorian king on my left, I guess fighting against maybe Celadine. And then there's one here that's torn, which is interesting. Maybe it's going to be revealed later. Looks like hags over a cauldron. I think there's art on the website that looks like that. And then this, I think that is probably Marisara Winterwhite, the elven lead. I'm not sure what she's signing there. And one thing that's interesting to note is, so what does it mean for the elves to be in this city? And this is a cool thing to think about when you're creating a campaign, right? What kind of aspects do you want to bring in to make a campaign shine when you bring in someone, you're telling heroes to help. Well, what does that mean? Why do people want heroes to help? And in this case, it's because they're overwhelmed and they must turn to aid. But there is a long history between the elves and the city, often adversarial, because, they're kind of colonizers, settlers, right? They're taking over the lands that were the elves. Though the elves have retreated, so it's not entirely that way, but there is a little bit of that. And then the first adventure was very adversarial. Let's jump in. Let's see how that plays out. Do they remember that we're heroes and friends, or is it something else? We'll find out. So it looks like we're speaking to Ilyasha Guiding Star. She's new.
If you are willing, the Illianbruin of Sharandar have need of your assistance.
All right. What's different now?
Word has it that you were looking to aid us once more. A new threat has emerged within the Feywild, and the Illianbruin could use your assistance. How else may I be of
Here for
assistance? The Feywild has been relatively peaceful since Malabog's fall. The Illianbruin are flourishing, and our once small foothold of New Sharandar is becoming a large hamlet the Eladrin now call home. Not all is well, however. Scouts returning from the Feywild report an unsettling presence, and the waters of New Sharandar run foul. We do not know why, but loutish creatures like trolls and redcaps have returned to the ruins of Malabog, and their numbers are multiplying once again. This is an urgent matter, as we recently lost contact with the Illianbruin of New Sharandar. Any who attempt a journey to the Fey Crossing fails to return. We believe someone of your power will be necessary to make the journey safely. Your experience has your help is greatly
I'm good.
appreciated.
I understand that now.
Yes, let us use a sending stone to communicate.
Okay. So we're going to communicate via sending stone, which is a magical item that allows two people to each have a stone that's matched, and you can speak to each other. It's a sending spell. All right, so we'll go from here. We'll do our map. So you can see this looks a lot like the other map that we shared. We have the Fey Crossing glowing there in this area of the Neverwinter Wood. We have a number of other locations, and then this magnifying glass that shows us the city of Neverwinter embiggened here, so we can see the various areas. Lots of different quests you can go. It's a very huge world, but we're going to go to this Fey Crossing. If it's like before, this is going to be sort of a mini experience to kind of whet our appetites and introduce us to the thing. So let's see if that's the case.
With the aid of heroes from Neverwinter, the Illianbruin elves defeated the armies of Malabog, the Fomorian king, who threatened the Feywild home of Sharandar. The elves took respite from battle to heal their wounds, to rebuild their lands, and restore their Arcane Reservoir. But the peace did not last. In the void left by Malabog, a new threat arose. Once again, the elves need help protecting Sharandar from ancient evil forces.
All right, cool. I am down with that.
A sending stone was a great idea. We lost contact with the others, so proceed with caution. That barrier is protecting those Oni.
Oni. So Oni are Japanese.
Gemstones, did you
folklore.
say? Remove them, and that should
Didn't,
lower the
but okay.
barriers.
All right, looks like I have some glowing stuff to interact with here, and let's try out some more.
That's an order! No thing! You know you!
So there's a new scaling mechanic shooting inside that is, I think, making this harder than it might be if I were maybe in the normal zone. It'd be interesting to see that. There's some sort of oh, that's right. Look at this.
I knew some of these Illianbruin. This is horrible.
Oh, and now we have some defenders. Oh, that's cool. So the trees have come I like to go first to see what they do to me, and then they might kill me, but after we see get it. Huge branches coming out. It's like this visual. I like playing a warlock. And my warlock use various powers that you equip in here, one of which is Vampiric Embrace, so I can heal myself. I'm gonna lower the volume of the game slightly, make sure y'all can hear me okay. That might be a tad loud. Alright, so we'll interact with the gemstones, removing them from this little weird bird-looking thing. Oni are also called Ogre Magi. change their size. That's one of the fun things they do. It doesn't change their statistics in 5th edition D&D, but it's just something that when they're bigger, they can occupy a larger space, and so it can be a battlefield advantage. Oh, and here we get some lore. Powerful beings of children's nightmares. Yeah, so the idea is that they can pretend to look like anyone else. They can adopt a humanoid look, but then they can transform themselves after they've tricked, someone to follow them into the woods or something like that. And it comes from Japanese mythology, though they are really Asian mythology, though they are fairly different in those forms. And it's not a faithful reproduction.
Thradisar saw over this gate. If you can
They
find
are
him,
very,
he should
very
have more
distantly,
information
although
for
they're called Ogre Magi at times, they are very distantly related to ogres. War Troll and some red caps here, which are evil Fey. Fey in D&D have changed in a number of ways, sort of slight ways, but in general, there's that idea that comes from fiction of good Fey and bad Fey. The Fey are always kind of tricky and different than we are, but some of the tales have the idea of an unseelie court and a seelie court, sort of competing courts of good and bad Fey creatures. These red caps can be kind of fun. Let's see what they do to me if I just don't fight for a second. Warhol tosses me to the ground. That's kind of cool. Power is considered they can do a fair bit of damage. And they can, if that guy gets, the power gets too many, it sort of does this whole thing that counts down. If it gets enough of the counter going, it robs me of what are called action points, which is sort of 4th edition D&D style mechanic that fills up this bar and allows me to use a daily power. So it'll rob me of that, and then I can't do my daily power. Which I might as well just use up. Deny them that ability. Trolls have sort of changed in appearance, and it looks like they've updated that appearance to make them more sort of spindly. Wither can take your health and also can heal other monsters, at least assuming they behave like they did before. Looks like I again have some one of these gemstones. This feels, it might not be readily apparent, but it feels harder than the certainly than Sharandar was from the character. I am max level. This is not a super optimized character by any means, but I'm not completely ridiculous. Decent gear. I've been through most of the campaigns with this character. This is probably my 3rd strongest. And so it's interesting that to me that it's a little hard. Dealing a good amount of damage to a good number of control powers that make it hard for me. Jump on me. Drink a drink.
It seems like the fortress is still down. There must be more of these Oni.
So, alright, so lore-wise, this is very typical D&D trope where we have the idea of some sort of ritual that you must do X number of times. So clearly there are a number of Oni that are sort of harnessing power to keep the Fey Crossing from working. What they mean by Fey Crossing here is that in Dungeons & Dragons you have what's called you have different planes of existence, different worlds. And the worlds can be accessed through different means. You might have powerful spells, you might have a powerful magic item. But if you have that capacity to access these things, then you can bridge the barrier between worlds and go to it. Some worlds are closer than others, so the Feywild is actually very close to our world, the prime material plane it's called in some editions, and so we can get to it through places that are where the walls are sort of naturally thin. For example, you might have some beautiful waterfall might be a way to cross. In fact, in the old adventure, we crossed through a waterfall. So that may still be the case. This resembles the previous way the game started to get to Sharandar, but it's a little bit different. That difference is not an inconsistency, if you're wondering about that. Feylands have a couple of things that are going on for them that can explain such a change. The worlds are a bit more malleable. Magic can change them. Fey creatures can change them. So either the Seelie or unseelie Fey could be causing this world to look different than it did before. The plane itself can sort of be intelligent, kind of, and change. So all of that could be something that's causing the world to be different, which is really fun. If you're running a campaign for D&D in the Feylands, you can change what things look like to visit. Another thing is time is at a different speed on different planes of existence. And so in this case, it's entirely possible that a long time has passed in this world compared to ours. Different campaigns have sort of, or different editions of the game have also made changes in what they think about how the world works in terms of those time changes. So it's hard. I'm not entirely sure what works, which one is faster or slower currently. I don't recall, and it may not even be known. So if you ever have to guess, as to put on your designer brain how many things you have to do, we'll guess 3. So we'll see if that's the case. We would have been frozen by that one. I like that kind of thing, being frozen. So I don't know if the other one was doing cool stuff. Maybe I didn't get a chance. But I like that a creature can do things differently. So we're doing the same jump and growth, but maybe that spell stuff is just something.
You should be able to reach the Fey crossing.
Oh, there you go. 3 was the magic number. Solve this 3 times, and you may now get to the Feylands. Cool. I'm down with that. I'm ready for something a little different. That's a little campfire. This is kind of your, if you die, here's where you go, spawn point mechanic. Oh, we have more dead elves. That's not good. I don't know why they'd be shot by... Oh, maybe it's not arrows, it's just grass. Now, one puzzle here that I have... A waterfall? Some kind of big Fey... Fomorian.
You took the gems? I will break your bones. What?
I'm just going to pull your bad guys. Charge here. That wasn't too bad. Having a healing power is certainly helping. So what was I saying? Well, let's actually just first see what Fomorians, assuming that's what she is, Fomorians are kind of Fey giants, and they're not only huge and enormous, but they can use magics to enhance their power and the type they are. All this changes across editions a little bit. But they are twisted, and they kind of hate the way that others look at them, particularly creatures that see themselves as super beautiful, like elves. I'm playing an elven character, so maybe she's extra magic. Stuff. Daily power on it. Yeah, as a warlock, I have a pact subclass.
She placed those gemstones to protect the Oni. Glad she's gone now.
Glad too that she's gone. So this is similar to last time. It does look different, and it's prettier. I gotta say that the art is really fantastic, but it is very similar in how it works. And this brings me to what I was going to say before, that is sort of puzzling. Yeah, you can see this. So I've gone through the waterfall, or sort of near it. Last time it was really... Ooh, a giant toad. What is this? Oh, sweet, grunt. These sort of are one of those mysteries that I'm sure has a developer story behind it. Grunn were added to a book sort of monsters, and then appeared first in the adventure based in Chult, which is one of the areas you can go to in this game and in the 5th edition of Dungeons & Dragons. And the Grung are sort of little toad humanoids. They look like frogs, but they can hold things in their hands. And they are generally, like, they're not necessarily super evil, but they're just sort of wild, and they will try to eat you. All right, but back to what I'm saying when I was so rudely interrupted. Let's see if there's anywhere to go to. So in kind of lore, you generally have the ability to go from one plane to another, and usually you just sort of step through a portal and there you are in this new land. But in this case, it might actually be, and sometimes in Fey folklore, the idea is that the world sort of slowly changes. So we might see the colors get more vibrant, or sort of the plants are natural, right? You can see this going on here. That's kind of cool. And that's a really neat, I like that about the lore, right? This idea that suddenly the mushrooms are as big as you are, and the plants are vibrant. There's sort of like will-o-wisp-like things in the air. This tells us that the barrier of the world is getting thin and we're transitioning to the Feywild. One of the things that's sort of interesting about the story of the way it's depicted in Neverwinter's game is, in theory, you have Sharandar, which is totally in the Feywild, and then you have New Sharandar, which is in Neverwinter Wood, physically not in the Feywild. The game always seems to suggest that you're going to the Feywild, and that's sort of they're always in the Feywild. And I think that's just maybe an artistic license to sort of make it more interesting, more fantastic. I feel like I'm gonna get attacked again. Yeah, there you go. Although I should probably see what they do. Let's find out. Frog runs forward, kind of moves like these guys attack me poison. That big frog was sweet. Glad I wrote that. I did lots of chirping for kind of croak when they die too. Hopefully that sound's carrying over. Very cool. That's pretty. Neat. And I see another frog. Oh, good. Not a Grung, by the way, come in different colors, which depends on how up the ladder they climb socially. So it's almost like a system weirdly, but not quite that. I guess it kind of is. Some perchers and wildlings. Defeated them all. Yep, there's some cutscene. Looks like the gatekeeper is some sort of shambling mound. I like shambling mounds. I like the art there with the
shambling mound? Someone didn't want this crossing open.
Shambling mounds aren't usually sentient, but I suppose they find them into some way. Not that they're not sentient, but they're not, you don't use it have a conversation with a shambling mound. But I think in Feylands everything's possible. I certainly like to play my Feywild that way. This is really pretty. So let's kind of... Before there used to be like a deer and... Oh, yeah. Oh, there's no splashing. That's a shame. I like... The water looks amazing, but it does not react to me as water should. I'm just sort of in it. But it's very pretty. I like it. Alright, well, let's see what the gatekeeper does. We're just going to go up and get beaten up by it. Let's see. Ooh, you killed some deer? No, you killed Bambi. Okay, it smacks me. Yeah, oh, that's fine. I meant to stay in it. Just reflexes. I can't let myself get hit. Let's see what it does. Beats me up, roots around me, binds me and captures me. Oh, that's cool. Yeah, that's really neat. Start dodging. Some creatures are immune to various control effects, so even though I can theoretically force force choke it. I can't, but it can lift me up. Two boss monsters. That's cool. Like the mechanics. A lot of them, that's for sure. Solo fight. Controlling it's probably a good character to have self-heal. Not heavy. Using potions. One thing about this game is potions have a timer on them, so when you heal yourself, you gotta wait a bit to survive. Combination of powers and potions is much easier.
It's restored. Find Marisara
Yep.
in New Sharandar.
I had mentioned Marisara, so it looks like she's still here. I always kind of wish that there were Easter eggs around here, but you know, every time I look for them, they really kind of aren't. But I always want there to be like, I don't know, some special thing that I could see, you know? Alright, so we're gonna go through this portal. So I guess this is now fully going into New Sharandar, which in this version is not on our world, which is historically what it kind of would be. Cool looking. This is in the Feywild proper, it appears. Nice. Looks cool. Yeah. So, you know, this is neat, right? It certainly has a Lord of the Rings type feel with this sort of architecture. There's nothing wrong with that. Cool warriors and protectors. The idea that the city's bigger than what you're seeing. I always like that. That's a kind of neat thing to do as well when you're describing things in a D&D game, right? That the world is sort of bigger than you need it to be. That's what the mailbox looks like, I think. Yeah. Okay, cool. Shrine.
This is an altar to Coralline, the Archheart, patron god of arcane magic and the Fae.
Coralline is sort of a, you know, father of elves, who is ever changing, which is kind of neat. Yeah, the ever-changing head of the elven pantheon. Which it doesn't actually talk about here. Father deity of the elvish race. There's the Seldarine, born out of Coraline's blood. He is opposed by Lolth, who was once one of his creations from his blood, who later rejected them. Even though elves are separated from Coralline in the rift caused by Lolth's betrayal, Coraline's favor is evident in their long lifespans as a cycle of reincarnation. Yeah, so he's talking about this is talking about the Drow and Coralline. It's interesting it says he. Coralline sort of changes gender, and when they mentioned change, I was thinking they were maybe going to talk about that, which 5th edition does a really nice job, and 4th edition did as well. But no. Alright, so we got a little like town here going on. Very cool looking over there. I love the glowing lights. That's super. Oh, we have some earth motes too. So earth motes aren't generally found in the Feywild, but I mean the Feywild can have whatever you want. But the spell plague did cause effects like that on Toril. But okay, so we got a weapons vendor of some sort. We get new armor types here. The seal vendor. Some metallurgy going on. Cool. Okay. I spotted unicorn. That's cool that it moves away. I like this. This is one of these portals where you come back to life if you die. But I like that it's a shrine of Coralline. That looks like you could jump up there and explore, but I don't know if you really can. I'm not going to bother now. Oh, that's a nice little view. Doesn't look like you can actually sit on it. One of the things they did that was really neat in the Yawning Portal area is they allowed you to sit on chairs, which you could press or interact and would sit you down, which is kind of neat. That's cool. This reminds me of Lord of the Rings when they're going past the elven lands, you know, long past, and getting towards the cities of men. That's cool. It's a neat looking, very beautiful place. Some archers here. Can they shoot me? Because that would be great. Not shooting. Oh, you don't hit me. Cool. Alright. It's worth checking. Be cool if you could die from friendly fire. Oh, it's pretty So this is the portal, and it's closed. Let's see the
For
map.
safety reasons declared by the
Okay,
council,
so
this
it's
gate will
looks
not
like it's a
be
little bit
open.
like before, in that there are several zones, and you have to unlock these gates to get to them by completing parts of the campaign. That's how it used to work before. Is there anything? Just a little spot here. Cool crystal pool thing. Neat. Oh, what is that? Let's see. I like it. Wanted to interact with them somehow. Yeah. There you go. Oh, so this is the new Arcane Reservoir. We talked. They told us about this place briefly in the cutscene. Sculpted by the magics of the Feywild, the purifying pool at the heart of Sharandar is home to a treasure trove of magical energy, holding the power of thousands upon thousands of purified Fey dark crystals. It forms the construct known as the Arcane Reservoir. So when we would fight Malabog, yeah, you would kind of kill off the unseelie evil Fey and take their shards and put them in the pools, part of a sort of daily repetitive quest. And I guess the idea is the dark energies in the crystals are purified, leaving a vast source of magical energy. It's kind of cool. I don't know why the dark elves had sort of dark crystals inside of them. Maybe it's something that Malabog did to empower them. More unicorns. So it looks like this is another gate that will open up later. Probably no one over there. Cool little area. Hey, it's
Our
Marissa.
people want nothing more than to live in peace,
Marisara.
but external forces seem to feel differently on the subject. The Fey Crossing is open again? That is great news! It is tragic to hear fellow Ilianbruin have fallen, but they gave their lives defending the Fey Crossing. Trolls and redcaps are quite common. However, I know very little about these other creatures you speak of. It is my understanding that ogres do not wield magic. However, their existence indicates something greater may lurk in the shadows. Ilyasha Guiding Star was most wise to request your assistance. She would only have chosen one strong enough to survive such a task.
Yeah.
With the crossing open once more,
I can quibble here
we may
that
continue
you
our
really,
dealings with the
as
great
an
people
elf
of
that has been
Neverwinter.
through these wars, you
At the
would
same
know
time,
all about
we must
ogres and
continue
trolls and wouldn't be
investigating this
wondering
unseen
about
threat
this.
that the council has been clamoring about.
Also, just elves in general are such along the peoples that they have an ability to understand the knowledge of the foes they face better
It
than
falls on me
human
to get to the
beings do,
bottom
but
of these
it's okay.
new threats facing Sharandar. We lost contact with our dignitary but a 10-day ago. We sent them with a small team of guards
Forgotten
in an
Realms
attempt
the
to
week as a
parley
10-day?
with the rabble that occupies the ruins of Malabog. I knew diplomacy with trolls would likely be a futile endeavor, but I had hoped our offering would be welcomed and our dignitary returned unharmed. Something about this feels wrong. My most able scout, Gathir, is presently attending to other tasks. Would you be interested in doing a bit of investigative work? I'm most interested in learning the fate of my dignitary.
Okay,
Maybe their
so find the
disappearance is
dignitary.
related to a new threat in the area. Please share your findings with Legaith Songskythe, as he will be handling matters pertaining to the ruins.
They seem to be sort of a step behind. New dignitary. Okay, so I'm going there, but what is this little spot here? So they can keep it from raining here. See some kind of lore here. Ladrin. Alright, yeah. Ladrin are more supernatural than other elves. And some have been allowed back into Arvindor. Okay, interesting. But yeah, let's go see what this looks like. Go through our first Fey gate. Cool. And so the idea is we're trying to find this ranger that went missing, but you guys don't seem to know where it is. Got some will-o-wispy type things. It's kind of cool. Creatures, deer. cool. Can't go in here. Makes you wonder what this place is all about. I wish they'd kind of told me what this is. I would have liked to have known, because it's not just like a wild area the way it was in the previous game. This is like, you know, something, but maybe it's overgrown and not. Maybe it's just ruins. Little houses in there, but nothing to see, doesn't look like. Kind of like wanting some lore of what this is, but I guess it's just abandoned ruin stuff. Okay. Lots of little like critters around. A chicken, that's cool. I guess that leads to some area there, some evil area, but I'm supposed to follow this sparkly trail to go to the dignitaries. I see some rotten elven archer. That's not good. That's not something we want. Some, like old banners. And what's this over here? Alright, let's fight you guys. I'm curious about this thing. Probably gonna just do this quest and we'll stop there. Oh, let's see what this is. Kale Skywatcher, third singer of the Arcane Blades, fought alongside adventurers from Neverwinter against the forces of Malabog, charged with securing the passes through the hunting grounds, preventing Malabog's minions from flanking Sharandar's primary assault force. Drew a blade, plunged in the ground, massive wall of force. Okay, kind of cool, sort of elven hero. That's neat. I like the idea of putting something like this in the game. It tells us what's going on. My dog likes it too, if you can. I'm not sure if you hear my dog in the background. I'm going to zoom past these guys. Unless I see any like lore type stuff. Oh, an archer.
Quickly, before you're seen.
Mind your eyes, traveler. There are things that move in the shadows.
Yeah.
I was tracking the dignitary you seek, but was forced to fall back when trolls picked up my scent. The dignitary went through here. I'm sure of it. Be wary. Things have become perilous here as of late. The Bashan Order's warbands are everywhere, laying claim to the ruins. May the Seldarine gods watch over you.
And you. Alright, so we're on the right trail. I guess he doesn't know I have a sparkling thing that leads me there anyway. I'm gonna go past those Fey. No need to fight things I don't have to fight. Okay, that looks bad. There we go. Oh yeah, examine corpse. A grisly corpse appears to be that of the missing Ilambruin dignitary. Oh, something has flayed the skin from it. That's nice. The coin purse appears untouched. This could be one of these things that sort of gives me a title, and which I always object to a little bit because it's sort of like, what am I doing with the coins? Am I giving them back to the elves, or am I don't know. Like, I'm not stealing the coins. I guess I'll leave them there. Yeah, that didn't particularly give me any title or anything for having not done that or anything. So sometimes they have in things. Alright, so that's it. I guess I go back. So I'm gonna portal travel, because why walk when you can plane travel? Sharandar. My dog is having a lot of fun. It does take me all the way here.
Welcome to Sharandar.
Getting a little choppy from streaming here. Not sure if that's obvious to you guys as I'm playing. Alright, let's see what this tells us. I'm meeting with Legaith Songsaith.
Have you some new information?
I do.
I'd be skinned. How gruesome and very untroll-like. There aren't many creatures from the Feydark that fancy removing the skin from their prey.
I can think of
I am
lots.
quite confident this is not the work of mere Feydark rabble. There is no doubt in my mind that the ogre mages you faced are somehow related to our dignitary, whatever this new threat might be. It would have been much nicer to meet under different circumstances, but fate can often be a cruel mistress, as it were. I have been told of your work with the Fey Crossing and the ogre mages you faced there. Some call them Oni, is it? To say I am intrigued would be a gross understatement. Right, So back to the task at hand, then. I have just heard from our scouts that
so there's some sort of
the creatures in the
iron
ruins
trinkets they're
carry
all
trinkets
carrying,
that
and I need
share
to collect a bunch of them.
similar
These are typical
abhorrent
gather
qualities.
X blahs,
Of
you know,
course,
necklaces,
these scouts
whatever.
couldn't have been
I'm
bothered to
glad
bring
that it
any
doesn't
of them
tell me to
back
collect
here for
5
study.
or whatever. I'm sure there's some
Scouts
number,
feared
but
bringing
it sort of
back the iron
makes it
trinkets
annoying. Like,
as
give me
they
more
may
story
be
and less
cursed.
collect.
It's odd. They're all cast from iron.
So I'd
and
rather
are
just
of the
find
same
one
shape.
than collect
I
8,
am
but maybe
very
there's
interested in
players just
seeing if
react
we can
better to
obtain some of these for
collecting
study.
the 8 that I see here in my
Bring
quest log.
some of them back to our smith.
Alright, I'll bring you some iron
He
trinkets.
will know what to do.
Iron is interesting,
You can find him up on
story-wise,
Skywatcher's
lore-wise,
Plaza.
because
May she never be
cold
forgotten.
iron is, well, iron is a thing that is referred to in kind of an old poem, I believe, that called it cold iron. But there's no actual thing about cold iron, it's sort of a concept. But really, iron is iron. And the idea is that in folklore, our real human folklore, when you expose fey creatures to iron, it hurt them or repelled them, and they didn't want to be nearby. So having iron like on your door or things like that could cause fey to not want to be in your house, or like a brownie would not come, and you know, you could either give it milk to placate it, or maybe you put an iron emblem of some kind on your door, and that could also keep them away from your home. In Dungeons and Dragons, cold iron is more made into a thing, which is the idea, and this does have some roots in mythology, or in folklore, I should say, that when you have when you have iron that's more natural, that this would be what repels the Fae, because it's sort of from the earth. It's like yeah, this sort of almost like and yeah, sort of that idea that it's sort of this pure elemental kind of thing coming from the ground. That's sort of the folkloric basis. And then the concept that's brought into things like Dungeons & Dragons is the idea that you would make a weapon out of iron, but you would do it sort of without getting the forge really hot. And this would allow you to sort of have this be a more natural style to it, or, you know, form to it, that the metal would be this special cold iron. In some editions of Dungeons & Dragons, it's actually meant something like more like meteoric iron, which does also have a sort of folkloric basis in ways, but I think just the general term cold iron is a bit of just, you know, we make it up to kind of have it be fun and different than iron. The idea that iron doesn't work, but cold iron does. So we'll have to see how that plays into the story. The idea that somehow these Fae are wearing iron instead of being affected by it, that could be interesting. It's not clear why. But I think this is a good place to stop for now, lore-wise. We've covered some pretty neat ground. We've seen some possibilities that the story's going to go in some new angles. I'm excited to see how that goes. Certainly looks beautiful, and it looks different than before. You know, this is not the old Arcane Reservoir of before. It looks totally changed. I'm wondering if there's some story reason for it, if it's just simply, hey, we're upgrading the art and we can explain it because it's the Feywild. But yeah, maybe I'll do a little stream in the near future and continue the campaign. If you have any questions about this, you can reach out to me on Twitter or through my channels, and you know, talk about, ask questions, or hit me up with lore angles you want me to cover. You can support my work on the DM's Guild. You can find a link to all my products at my website and my blog, alphastream.org. Learn about the game of D&D, find cool work that I'm involved with, and you can always find my previous streams on YouTube, and you can see on the screen right now where you can reach me. Thank you, everyone, and I look forward to exploring more of the Feywild and New Sharandar with you.